Today, I'm in desperate need of fixing a mistake I made during my last oil change on my 3rd gen Tacoma.
I totally stripped out my oil filter housing's drain plug.
And ever since, oil changes have been a bit messier than before. Yuck.
Quite a mistake, so it was time to get a new one, which I did. Got the new drain plug for my oil filter. But seeing as I had to find a way to take out the stripped one from my filter housing, I decided just to buy a new housing, just not bother with trying to get the stripped one out. And I used that as an excuse to also upgrade to Toyota's OEM metal filter housing. Yes, this is an actual, real, genuine Toyota part. You can see it is stamped Toyota right on the metal filter housing, or actually it's embossed. I think stamped would be if it was pressed inward, but yeah, you can see the Toyota logo right on it. So at first thought, many would consider this an upgrade, right? Metal versus plastic, which comes stock on these trucks. Seems like it's got to be better. But there are a good number of people out there that actually prefer the plastic housing. They're fine with sticking with it. And funny enough, actually the price of this upgraded metal filter housing is very, very similar. There's not a huge price gap if you were to buy a new plastic housing versus this metal one. Kind of interesting.
So what's going on here, and which one is truly good for my truck?
So spoiler alert, I am going to be installing this metal filter housing on my truck today and showing that to you guys, but we are going to talk about the pros and cons of both the metal versus plastic variant, especially in the context of a DIYer, which is what I am, and I think a lot of you guys are as well. And I wanted to make a video about this in case you were looking into upgrading. And I just think in general, the conversation and discussion around metal versus plastic when it comes to this part is quite interesting. Also wanted to give a huge shout out to Ironclad, who sent over a few sets of their gloves after they saw me use a pair of their Tactical Pros in my needle bearing install video. I always complain about how my #1 thing is having a comfortable glove, because otherwise it inhibits your work experience and it just really sucks. And the Tactical Pros I bought were really good, but I had no idea they had all these other gloves. Like, I mean, look at these ones. These literally remind me of like the Infinity Gauntlet. This one was kind of interesting. Look at the palm. It's like this sticky silicone material. Definitely gonna use these when I rotate my tires later today. And then these microfiber ones, they're kind of like this hybrid between like a shop glove that you would throw away and also just like a general utility glove, but they're very tactile. They're touchscreen compatible as well. Very similar in feeling to like wearing a rubber glove, just way more durable. So definitely going to use these today. Thanks, Ironclad. Okay, so first up, I am gonna be removing my TRD front skid plate, not because I have to. There is a cutout for the drain plug and also the oil filter housing, but I just feel like there's gonna be more room to work and also just like show you guys underneath the vehicle with it out of the way.
I'm breaking all the bolts loose to get started.
I forgot the last two back there are 12, so I'm gonna get that real quick. You guys already know when I'm alone, I use the jack for literally everything.
Commonly asked on my channel is what jack this is, and it is a Pro Eagle. Yes, it is very beefy for the garage and more suited towards off-road use, which I've used it in many recovery situations and absolutely love it, but I just use it in the garage here too and don't have another jack.
Now we're gonna go drain our fluid with a 14mm socket. And I switched out the Ironclad gloves because I always get oil all over my hands when I'm draining fluid. Now you can see my drain plug gasket always tends to get stuck, so try to remove it with like my fingernail, but it's like really stuck on there sometimes. So a lot of times I take this little stubby flathead and I just kind of push it off. Obviously a good rule of thumb is to not reuse that, so we're going to use a fresh gasket, put our drain plug back.
I started by hand to avoid cross-threading and then get to torquing it.
The rule of thumb I like to typically use when torquing things down when changing my oil is the 30-20-10. 30 foot-pounds is the torque spec of the drain plug. 20, well, it's really 18, is the torque spec of the entire filter housing, and then 10 is that little filter drain plug. But 30-20-10 is just easier to remember. All right, now on to our fun part, removing the oil filter housing. Now, typically the way you would do this and the way you guys have seen me do it in every other video before I stripped out this plug is by using this drain tool. This is another thing I got from Motivix Tools. After you remove the drain cap, which makes everything nice and super clean, but we don't have that luxury today. So I'm going to just be using my notchless Motivix oil filter to completely remove the drain plug and housing all in one go, which means we're going to have a little bit of oil, or maybe a lot, I don't know, kind of flow out of here. So we'll just do our best. Got an extension on this, just the 3/8 inch. Put this on a ratchet and just slowly remove it. And it is a little tough to remove, but I promise you guys, I didn't over torque it. It just, that gasket makes a pretty good seal, even at 20 foot-pounds. All right, pause for a second because the oil is all about to come out, but I've seen this like TikTok trick where you put a cup over the oil filter, and I'm like contemplating life if I should do that right now. Screw it. Or unscrew it. No pun intended. And here we go. Okay. It was bad, but not that bad. Maybe I should have done the TikTok trick. All right, with both of these out, let's take a closer look and compare. I would say right off the bat, they both look pretty similar, pretty much the same. Except I guess it's nice that the metal version actually has the torque spec embossed right here at the bottom, so no excuses to over torquing this one. Otherwise, these are both very comparable. This is a very similar product to this one. Maybe the only other difference I noticed is that you can see there's only 2 tabs, whereas this guy has 4. So I think the obvious thing is that this metal one is going to be more durable. It's not going to crack, break, and I think strip as easily. And theoretically, the thread should last longer with repeated use. So long as you don't cross-thread it, of course. That'd be really bad. Now, looking at my plastic one, besides the drain plug issue, which is, you know, my own thing, I have done an oil change every 5,000 miles on my Tacoma, and I'm almost at 90,000 miles now. And as you can see, the plastic tabs on my plastic composite filter housing are completely intact. In fact, this housing looks really, really good. No damage to the threads. Not trying to toot my own horn, but I really try to actively not over torque it. But I think the big thing that helps is using these specialized Motivix notchless filter wrenches. So you can see this is a standard oil filter wrench with some tab cutouts built in, or I guess notches. This one is completely notchless. This one has helped me prevent damage to the tabs on this filter housing. And by the way, this is a really good product. It comes in a kit with a lot of other really nice and easy to use tools if you're a DIYer or even if you work in a shop. So I'll have everything linked down below in case you want to know what parts I use for my oil changes. But anyways, I think a lot of people will move to this metal oil filter housing when they break the tabs off of their OEM plastic one, because the mechanic or dealership will over torque the heck out of these, and the metal is just much more forgiving if you do over torque. So what's the argument against this metal filter housing? Why do some people actually prefer the plastic filter housing with the tabs and all? Well, first off, you can argue it is a little bit heavier, but honestly, that's so negligible. Like, I can't even tell which one is heavier, to be honest with you guys. But I think the real kicker is that a lot of people will say aluminum on aluminum will gall. And yes, that is a real thing. Okay, so what is thread galling? Well, when two metal surfaces slide against each other under pressure, they can stick they can tear, or they can seize. And you can kind of think of it as micro welding. Under pressure and friction, the surfaces start transferring material back and forth, eventually actually binding together. So when you try to unscrew the parts, i.e. unscrew this from your engine, they can actually seize up or even tear chunks of the metal out. And aluminum is softer, of course, than steel or stainless steel, so it actually forms this oxide layer that breaks down easily under friction, which means it's actually more likely to adhere and potentially fuse. So a lot of people, when they hear this, they'll recommend applying a little bit of anti-seize to the threads to, of course, prevent galling. However, in this specific case, I'm a little bearish on using anti-seize because it does contain fine metal particles, and I'd rather not chance that potentially mixing in with my engine oil, although I'm sure using a really small amount is probably fine. So that is the primary concern and why some people don't even want to upgrade to this metal filter housing. I just thought of another reason. I guess plastic is also a lot cooler to the touch if your engine oil is hot, although I tend to wait a little bit, leave the truck parked and let just everything cool down before I change my oil, so I'm not really concerned about this thing heating up too much. Overall, my understanding is that the real risk isn't whether you have the aluminum metal filter housing or the plastic filter housing, it's whether you're over tightening it or not, and in a lot of cases whether you're using the right tool as well. I truly do believe that this plastic filter housing can last the lifetime of the truck so long as you don't cross thread it and also you use the right torque spec. I am still choosing to go with this metal variant. I mean, it's kind of what I only have here today, so it's kind of what I have to go with. But I do think it has a lot of benefits. But just as a DIYer, I think thinking about things like this, talking about things like this, even as routine as doing an oil change is to a lot of us, it's just a good reminder to just not go like super ham on these things because it can save you a lot of trouble. Okay, let's get this new one all set up. Not forget to put the drain plug on and finish our oil change. And our new non-strip drain plug goes here. Being very careful not to cross thread, of course. There we go, fits like a glove, just like it should. And that oil filter wrench fits perfectly on it as well. And I'm going to torque this down exactly to the torque spec. There we go, that's 20. Then we'll torque this drain plug to 10. Okay, we're going to go square in straight. That's 10, that's it. That's all it takes. Also, pro tip, if you have trouble getting your cap off, take a set of needle nose pliers back in and just use them for extra leverage to twist that off. Learned that from Chris Fix video. Now time to pour our oil. Havilland Pro DS 0W20. 6-quart box is pretty much the exact amount I need every single time. It gets the dipstick in at least my truck at the perfect level, exactly a box of this stuff. Even though the capacity is slightly larger than 6 quarts, I always find that box of this tends to be just right for my truck. Okay, don't mess up, don't mess up. Don't spill it in the engine bay. Oh, this is always the most nerve-wracking part. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I think I was good. I think I cleared it. Just wanted to quickly reflect on that install and kind of talk about some of my initial impressions on this metal oil filter housing. I do want to mention, as I was threading it on, it just felt a lot smoother than the plastic housing. I don't know if my plastic threads are just worn and that's just an artifact of the new housing filter, but it just felt much more smooth. And yeah, overall, I'm excited to see how this performs, how I like it. Hopefully we won't have any problems with it. Also, just want to again give a huge shout out to Ironclad Gloves. These microphones were seriously amazing, you guys. I definitely recommend a set or two of these for automotive maintenance. Thank you so much for watching. Again, let me know what you think about the metal versus plastic filter housing. And if you want to connect more with me, you can follow me on my Instagram. I am at ChloeQOtaco. I'm typically posting more in real time on there. So if you want more content, check that out. Otherwise, hope I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.